This beautiful young woman had her life taken away from her on what was supposed to be the road trip of a lifetime. The main suspect, her boyfriend, whomst had been traveling alongside her, is now on the run from law enforcement. Daunting footage from that same trip has since been released by police, and this heartbreaking case is slowly unraveling for the world to see. Welcome back to Twisted Minds. My name's James, and today we will be taking a deep dive into the tragic passing of Gabby Petito, a bright young lady who had her life taken from her at just the young age of 22. Gabby was described by her mother as being a fun-loving person who just wanted to go on adventures and see the world. Sadly, her world came crashing down around her in September of 2021 when she lost her life at the hands of a violent criminal. Gabby Petito was born on March 19, 1999. She would grow up in a typical American household, surrounded by family and friends who cared for her deeply. Most of her childhood remains a mystery, as her family are doing their best to keep much of her personal information private. However, one look at Gabby's social media reveals a lot about her lifestyle. She also often posted photos from her travels around the country, showing herself on mountainsides, downtown areas, national tourist locations, and many wonderful locations that many of us could only dream of visiting. She was, by all means, living her best life and spreading positivity everywhere she went. At the time of this recording, Gabby's first and last ever YouTube video sits at over 4 million views, with the video displaying all the fun adventures she had whilst traveling on the road with her boyfriend, Brian Laundrie. While Gabby's light shines through her blissful footage of the young couple and their adventures, these videos will end up leaving a sour taste in your mouth as we begin to unravel her dark, dark fate. We know that right before the time of her passing, Gabby and Brian worked at a Publix grocery store in Florida. The two had been working long hours at the store so that they could save up money for a road trip they had been planning. Gabby was so dedicated to making this trip a reality that she even took up a second job, working at a juice bar and cafe. She would often describe herself as a nutritionalist, and this job seemed to have been an outlet for her to express her more health-conscious passions. Considering the couple lived an unordinary lifestyle of van living, Gabby uploaded TikToks showing off her unique approach to life, with some going viral. This resulted in her disappearance becoming one of the most publicized in social media history. In the years before her disappearance, Gabby had been attending Bayport Blue Point High School in New York. It was here that she had met her longtime boyfriend, Brian. The two graduated from high school in 2017, but it wouldn't be until 2019 that they would begin a relationship together. They eventually moved in together, living with Brian's parents in Florida later on in 2019. By July of the following year, their relationship was going so well that they decided to get engaged, planning to get married a few years later. In the meantime, they had been prepping for a 4-month trip in their 2012 Ford Transit Connect van. The two spent a lot of time converting the van into a makeshift camper, planning to live in the van for several months while traveling across the continent. They set off for their trip in July of 2021, and it seems as though they planned on returning sometime around November. After traveling together for just about 4 or 5 weeks, the relationship between Brian and Gabby began to crumble. On August 12, 2021, a witness called the police while the two were in Utah. The witness claimed to have seen the two fighting outside of the Moonflower Community Cooperative. The report claimed that not only were the two verbally aggressive toward one another, but that Brian had slapped Gabby at least once, later returning to assault her a second time. The witness felt that things were about to get out of hand and asked for the police to come to the scene as quickly as possible. Utah police would arrive just a few minutes later, but the two had already left the scene of the incident. However, police continued to search for the pair, stopping them in traffic near the entrance of a national park that was located close by. When an officer approached the car, he immediately noticed that Gabby had been crying and could barely breathe between her sobs. Clearly, something terrible had happened between these two, but they did their best to tell their story to the officers. When the officer asked Gabby what had happened, he said that she could barely speak due to the severe stress she was under. But she told the officer that she had been struggling with personal issues. This entire ordeal was recorded on one of the policeman's body cams and has since been released to the public. The officer would later state in his police report, "At no point in the investigation did Gabrielle stop crying, breathing heavily, or compose a sentence without needing to wipe away tears, wipe her nose, or rub her knees with her hands." This incident and the coinciding police report are what have caused many people to have a negative opinion of Gabby's boyfriend, Brian. If you were to take this report at face value, it paints a clear picture of Brian being an abuser, with Gabby being a submissive partner. However, the story isn't quite this simple. According to Brian, the two had been bickering with one another after they'd become agitated from traveling together for such a long time. When speaking with police, Gabby admitted that she had struck Brian at least once, with this taking place a short while before the witness called the police in Utah. However, I think we can all agree that a woman instigating violence should not result in a man reciprocating violence. Rather, the man to physically grab or control the situation instead. In the footage, they both claim to have gotten into an argument, with Gabby escalating the argument to physical violence. Brian then suggested that the two take a few minutes apart from one another, proposing that Gabby take a walk to calm down, then come back to the van when she had cooled off. Gabby accused Brian of conspiring against her, feeling as though he would get into the van and drive away after she had walked off. After police learned all the details about the situation, the couple agreed that they did not want to file charges against one another. Instead, police made arrangements for Brian to spend the night in a nearby hotel, with Gabby staying in the van. This would give them a much-needed time apart and allow them to cool off for the evening, then continue their trip in the morning. However, as time tells, this time apart was nowhere near enough. Police later classified the incident as a mental and emotional health break. Police let them both walk away without any charges. The entire recording from the event was released in mid-September, a month after the situation. When interpreting the footage after Gabby's disappearance, it's clear that Brian was the abuser in the relationship, with his charisma and charm enabling him to hide in plain sight, even from the police who watched the 1-hour ordeal unfold in front of their eyes. On August 24th, 12 days after the altercation, staff at the Fairfield by Marriott Hotel near Salt Lake City reported seeing Gabby requesting a room at the hotel for the evening. She would later speak to her mother over FaceTime and said that the two were heading toward Yellowstone National Park. 2 days later, on August 26th, Gabby posted a photo to her Instagram account, with this being the final social media post from Gabby before she went missing. However, her mother would continue to receive text messages from Gabby's phone until August 30th. Just before this, on August 27th, Gabby's mother received a text message from her phone that read, "Can you help Stan? I just keep getting his voicemails and missed calls." This message took her mother by surprise, as Stan was her grandfather. The message was concerning because she had never referred to her grandfather by his first name before. A final message was sent to Gabby's mother on August 30th that simply read, "No service in Yosemite." 2 days later, on September 1st, Brian would return home to his family in Florida, driving the couple's van. However, Gabby was not with him. Gabby's mother would wait until September 11th to file a missing persons report, after failing to hear from Gabby for nearly 2 weeks. Once police caught word about Gabby's disappearance, Brian's home was the first place that they had searched for clues. They inspected the couple's van as well, and eventually towed it to the police station to continue their investigation. Investigators found a hard drive in the van that would later be checked for evidence after they obtained a search warrant. By the following day, Brian was named as a person of interest in Gabby's disappearance. Neither he nor his parents would talk with police officers, and after hiring a lawyer, the family were told to remain silent unless charges were placed against them. On September 17th, a group of protesters arrived outside of Brian's home. accusing him of knowing what happened to Gabby. That same day, he would disappear from the family home. The family claims to have no idea where he may have gone. This isn't the behavior of an innocent man, don't you think? Sure, leaving your home that is swarmed with protesters might be the move, but that just isn't the case with Brian. At the time of this recording, he's on the run, avoiding all contact and tracing with his family, the public, and law enforcement. On September 19th, a couple, Jen and Kyle Benuth, contacted police after they noticed that their dash cam had captured footage that may have been important in the investigation. They had been traveling near Bridger-Tenton National Forest in Wyoming on August 27th when they spotted a van that had matched the description of Gabby and Brian's camper van. They said that they first thought the vehicle was interesting because it had a license plate from Florida, the same state they had been traveling from. They passed by the van, but when they returned later that evening, they noticed the van was still there. This time, as they drove past the van, someone closed the rear door of the van abruptly, seemingly not wanting anyone to see what was inside. On the same day that the couple submitted the footage to the police, an unidentified body was found in the surrounding area that matched the description of Gabby. The following day, police returned to Brian's family home and declared the home a crime scene. They began removing items from the home to investigate them further, later even going as far as towing the family's car for further analysis. That same day, a person was spotted on a trail camera near Baker, Florida. The man in the footage appears to match the description of Brian, but police are still actively investigating the sighting. On September 21st, the body that had been found in Wyoming was confirmed to belonging to Gabby Petito, confirming her family's darkest fears. In the days and weeks following Gabby's disappearance, her case made headlines across the country and across the globe. It seems as though everyone in her hometown has been actively searching for her, and many Florida residents have been spending days and weeks on end looking for any clues that may have helped to solve this case. This is a huge result of her TikTok presence, with millions of people sharing her account and her story, along with their theories and breakdowns on Brian's questionable ways. On September 21st, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis declared that he wanted all state agencies to direct their focus toward the case, adding, "We need justice for Gabby Petito." The FBI has now reached out to the public, asking for help in locating Brian Laundrie. They have continued their searches throughout the last few days and are hoping to close in on Brian before he manages to flee the state. Brian's neighbor spoke out about Brian and his family, saying, "I'm really upset now because the Laundries should have absolutely come forward. I mean, I just can't believe they didn't do something. I'm really angry now that they let this go. And that everything was so natural, they remained so normal through the whole thing, you know?" The neighbor added he mowed the lawn. He and his mother went for a bicycle ride around the block. I mean, everything was just normal life once he came back. It seemed like nothing bothered him. How can you do that? I have children, and I know that you do what you can to protect your child, but, you know, that can go so far, and you gotta do the right thing eventually. You have to. At the moment, this is as far as the investigation can take us. It's safe to say once the answers are in, we'll be exploring the case once again, hopefully with a definite answer to the person who took the life of Gabby. We are still waiting to hear further details from the Florida police regarding the disappearance of Brian Laundrie. Considering how many people are actively looking for him, there is no way he can remain on the run forever. Though it should be noted that regardless of the mounting evidence against him, we still technically don't know whether or not Brian is involved in Gabby's death. But hey, it's safe to say we can all make our own logical assumptions. Thanks for tuning in to Twisted Minds. That was the disappearance of Gabby Petito. Oh, and why don't you go ahead and click on one of the 2 videos on your screen for another one of our videos.